This training video covers Step 10 of the HeavyJob Foreman's Reference Guide, completing the Time Card Extra tab. On this video, we're going to look at entering mileage in the alternate quantity column. We're going to look at per diem or subsistence. We're going to look at entering or editing employee and equipment notes. We're also going to look at entering off in the employee note to avoid inclusion in certified payroll reports. So on the screen, I have a HeavyJob time card that I've been working on through the other training videos, and we have all of the cost codes. We have all of the cost code notes, the quantities, the employees, the equipment, and the hours have all been recorded. We've also filled in the schedules tab. So now we're going to look at what we need to do on the extra tab. And the extra tab is the farthest right, so always easy to get to. Click on extra. And we'll just go through these one column at a time. The alternate quantity column is a place where we enter an alternate quantity for any piece of equipment that is tracked in something other than hours. And the most common example of this is our 06 pickups. Light duty pickups are all tracked in our accounting system by the mile. So we use the alternate quantity to enter that mileage. So on my 06 truck, I will enter 100 miles. And your location will have guidelines for what you enter for mileage. Some locations have a minimum. Some locations want you to enter exactly the miles driven each day. So whatever your location specifies, go ahead and put those miles in. But what you need to understand and remember on the pickup miles or anything that we use for alt quantity is that you must also have hours under at least one cost code. The HeavyJob program, when we send this time card to accounting, will take that 100 miles and split it proportionate to the hours under all three of these cost codes that have time for that pickup. Now, some locations use a single pickup cost code. If that were the case, you would put all 8 hours or whatever you're recording under that single pickup cost code. But most of the time, the pickup hours follow the foreman, and hours go under the cost code, miles go under the alternate quantity. There are some other types of equipment that use the alternate quantity column. For example, some concrete equipment that is tracked by the cubic yard, and a few others. You got a few plant pieces that are tracked by the ton. So the alternate quantity works for all of those, but the most common is the 06 series pickups. The next column on the extra tab is the meter off field, and the meter off field can be used to enter either odometer readings or equipment meter reading, and meter off does not export at all to our accounting systems. The next column is the link column. This column is a final check to make sure that your equipment is linked to an employee. Most users are already set up to have a yellow line for unlinked equipment, but as you can see in this example, I have the yellow line and I also see an N in the link column telling me that I need to correct that one piece of equipment. Easiest way to correct that is to highlight that piece of equipment, go back to the main tab and click on the employee equipment button, and that piece will be highlighted and you can just link it to the appropriate employee. Then when you go back to the extra tab, you should see yeses in all equipment lines under the link column. Per diem and subsistence are similar, but there is a substantial difference in that one is taxable, one is not, and it's up to each foreman to understand the rules and the expectations for your location if you are going to use either the per diem or the subsistence. The per diem is a simple checkbox. If you check the per diem checkbox for any given employee, that employee will be paid the per diem that is set up in the background for that job. Our payroll personnel are typically the ones that set up those per diems, and if you've got employees that are getting per diems, you should know what that rate is. You should know which crafts qualify for per diems, which employee. Subsistence is similar. Subsistence is taxed, and you actually enter a dollar amount. So if you're working for a location that pays subsistence, make sure you know that and make sure you know what the dollar amount is for your job location. So, and you would type in that dollar amount directly for each employee. So if each employee got $50 a day, you would type that in as their subsistence. We normally don't see a combination of per diem and subsistence on the same time card. It's going to be one or the other, and it is up to each foreman to know which one you're expected to use for your job and your location and what those amounts should be. The final column on the extra tab is the notes field. The notes field is a single note per either employee or equipment line. So you can see some of the notes that have been entered, and if we just quickly review on the main tab under the employees time, I had an employee that was unexcused for 2 hours. In this case, I used tardy 2 hours. And on the note, a right click, edit employee equipment note, I put the note in that he came in late, said okay, and that actually puts that note over here in the note column for that employee. Had another employee that had a doctor's appointment, and we had a piece of equipment here that had some downtime, D3, down 3 hours, and we put that note in that it had a flat tire. So that's the employee equipment note. You can type the notes in directly here, or you can edit a note that you entered the other way through the shortcut. So it's very important to enter that employee or equipment note to help people that aren't familiar with what was going on that day understand, especially with attendance and non-use code. But anything else that you want to make comments about, if you had issues with an employee or a piece of equipment, good place to put that is that note column. That note will always be tied to that employee or to that piece of equipment, whereas if you try and put it in the cost code note, it's not going to be tied directly to the employee or equipment that it affects. Finally, on the note field, and this is only for locations that are working on jobs that have certified payroll report. We have one method if an employee needs to be charged to the job, but you don't want that employee to appear on the certified payroll report. You would simply type in the word off, OFF, as the first part of any employee note. And when we send that time card to accounting, it does look at that note and it handles that time entry just a little bit different to keep that employee off the certified payroll report. That might be a mechanic that's working on equipment damage. He's actually working in the shop, but the charge is going to the job. So you would want the mechanic's time card going to that job, that prevailing wage job, but not necessarily that mechanic to show up on the certified payroll report. So we use the word off in the note field. And that covers all of the columns and entries on the extra tab. So that concludes this training video.